Hi guys, it's Simone. So, as you know, I like to talk about accents, and I've recently been focusing on, if I talk about accents, talking about going from British to American and vice versa, maybe more from American to British, okay? So, in my last accent video, I talked about 5 vowel sounds in 5 words. The 5 words were pat, pet, pit, pot, put, having the same consonant so you can just focus on the vowel. And then in a British accent, we changed them to pat, pet, pit, pot, pot. So there's more detail about that in my other video. But there are a few consonant-y things I should discuss that go with those 5 words, okay? First, I'm going to talk about a sound called a glottal stop. A glottal stop is a consonant sound that exists in both British and American English, but it's very, very rare in American English. So I'm basically going to have to teach you how to say it. Not teach you, okay. I have to think of a very rare example, which is uh-oh, okay. If you're American, you've probably heard uh-oh, uh-oh. Do you hear the consonant sound between and o? It's just a stop. There's no sound. Okay. That is a glottal stop, and you will use that in these particular 5 words because they end with a T. When you have one of those words and it's the end of your sentence, or like the end of your utterance would be the correct term, you're not going to say anything after that, you will use a glottal stop. So, for example, if I were going to say, like, do you want to put? Do you want to put? Or, like, better example, do you have a pot? Do you have a pot? Pot? Okay, so practice that. Now, what if the T is in the middle of a word? This is a big deal, especially if you're going from Brit to American. But first we're going to talk about going to British. Okay, if the T is in the middle of the word, you do not use a glottal stop unless you're doing a specific British accent such as Cockney, where they will say, like, I'm Eliza Doolittle, where that was a stop in the middle of a word. But in a standard British accent, you will not use a glottal stop in the middle of a word. You will use, well, particularly we're talking about when it has a vowel before it and a vowel after it, and no consonants in the middle, okay? You will use t. That may sound like duh, it's obvious, but the catch is that in the US, we often say which is a sound called a tongue flap. Let me give you an example. Well, let me give you 5 examples. Patter, petter, pitter, potter, putter. Yes, you might say pitter patter if you were trying to talk really properly, but if you're like my age, you're probably just like, patter, Harry Potter. Okay, so think of Harry Potter. Okay, yeah, so the tongue flap, I wish I could teach, like, a word, like if you're going from British to American, a word in a British accent that you can equate it to. But as far as I know, the tongue flap does not exist in British English, because we only have it so we can lazily say T's and D's. That's all why Americans have it. So, yeah. In fact, because of this, in an American accent, right and ride are clearly 2 separate words. But sometimes you say rider, and, like, you only know by context whether you mean a writer or a rider, okay? So keep in mind the tone flap to avoid it if you're going too British, and to use it if you're going to an American accent. Okay, so we talked about tongue flap, we talked about glottal stop. Oh yes, what else do you notice about the phrase Harry Potter? Something called R deletion, which means when the letter R is at the end of a word in a British accent, unless there's a vowel after that R, you will not pronounce the R. The tricky part is keeping your vowel R colored, which means keep your vowel shaped as if it's going to have an R after it. And then just don't put an R after it. In fact, I said end of a word. It could be in a consonant cluster at the end of a word, which means RM, RD, RL. So if you're going to say like girl, go, word, would. Okay, so just keep that in mind. British to American, of course, opposite direction. Make your R's noticeable. And there is one place where you would have to add an R if you were going from an American accent to a British accent. And that is when there are two adjacent words, one ending in a vowel and one starting in a vowel. The best example I can think of right now is Anna and Stephanie. In an American accent, it's almost like a glottal stop that we would put there, Anna and Stephanie. In a British accent, standard British, usually you would say Anna and Stephanie. So you had to add that R to make like the vowels flow together. I mean, make them, yeah. So, okay. So, let's review. We've talked about R deletion at the end of words, glottal stop at the end of words, tongue flap in the middle. Yeah. Another thing to reiterate about the tongue flap. It's either going to be between two vowels or between a vowel and an L. Like a vowel at the beginning and an L at the end. So, little. Okay. So yeah, just keep practicing that, and please let me know if you have any questions or if there's something that I did not explain clearly or that I did not explain correctly, because I still feel sort of new at this, but I don't know, it's a lot of fun. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Oops, side note, it occurred to me right after filming that that there's a physiological way to teach the tongue flap. If you're going from British to American and it's like a weird concept to you, the tongue flap. So basically, say ah or some vowel sound and just like hit the tip of your tongue against your alveolar ridge, which is like right behind your front teeth. Okay? That's the physiological way to teach this sound. So if you can't think of the sound contextually, just practice going like, this is gonna look stupid. Okay, just practice going like, da 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 da. Okay, it's gonna look stupid, but it's really gonna help. Okay, so thank you again for watching.